sent off. To the point where I said, we sent an email saying we are really frustrated now because you keep sending us these links, but we can't use any of the images. Which ones can we use?
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up getting someone to design an image that we saw, but it was, like I say, that normally had 5 ladders. We just changed it to 3, put the cloud in,
Yeah.
and they're okay with it
Uh-huh.
eventually. Yeah,
Do,
but I think that was really frustrating. Just that bit.
do you remember the name of the editor you dealt with there?
Sarah Baines.
Okay.
Yeah. Um,
Publisher?
Routledge, Eve.
Rutledge.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there was different time zones because she wouldn't respond to our emails till weird hours of the morning. So I think she might be in a different continent somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
Now, Routledge is based in England, isn't it? I mean, it has a New York, I know it has a New York office, but it's based in England, I think.
Well, it's
I think she was based in India.
Okay.
Mm.
There's a lot of publishers use India. They do production there. It's cheaper
Mm.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think some editing,
Mhm.
but I think it's more production. Yeah.
So
It's been true for
hopefully,
a long time.
what we're now, January, February. So hopefully by March, Eve, it should be ready to go.
wow. That was a speedy job.
It
Mm.
really
Mm.
is.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Kate.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Wonderful to see all of you.
Yeah.
Special
Eve, I'm
treat.
so
See?
excited that I get to spend time with you. I mean, I'm excited to get to spend time with all of you, but
Well,
Eve
you and
holds a very special place here.
absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
And
Yes.
Kate, you're still in Fayetteville, Arkansas?
Yeah, yep, I am.
All
Is
right.
it still all frozen in Arkansas?
It is. Yeah, everything's still closed down. So hold on, I'm
Yeah,
just, how about
you
you,
know,
Gil? Did you get hit with the big storm?
we got 12 inches of snow, but
Wow.
we didn't get the ice. But
Okay.
my hometown is Nashville, Tennessee. I grew up in Nashville.
Oh, I hear they really got hit.
Yeah, I still have family and friends there, and I've been tracking what they've been going through. And yeah, Nashville got really hammered with the ice,
Yeah,
power
and they had a lot
outages.
of power outages and things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still going on with the power outages.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
that's a
My
shame.
grandson, my grandson lives in Nashville,
me as well.
and he had to
It says
stop
recording,
working.
Joe.
Hey, Arno.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon.
Good evening,
Yeah.
Hi,
How are you?
Good.
doing well.
All the
Yeah, good
better
to
for
see you.
all the better for seeing all of you. Arnold, Eve, have you ever read any of Arnold's work or met Arnold?
No, I don't think so.
Arnold, do you want to introduce yourself to Eve and Kate, if you don't know Kate
And
Kowalski?
yeah, and I've read some of your work, but I have not,
Oh, really? Oh,
but we haven't met.
I'm Arnoud Huibers. I'm a psychologist from the Netherlands, and I'm a psychotherapist and a solution-focused trainer. So I teach a lot
Nice.
around the country in Holland, and also in India. Once a year, go to India.
Mhm.
Going there next week to teach at seven different places, 7 different
Wow.
universities,
Wow.
from Kolkata to the south of India. And that's wonderful. I'm looking forward to that.
Nice.
And Arnold, you and I met a couple of years
Yes,
ago.
we did. We met in Amsterdam. Gil.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed my time there. Enjoyed your conference.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was good seeing you there. It was a nice conference, right?
It really
Aisha was there.
was.
Joe was there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Haesun was there. Is Haesun coming
Yes, she
today?
was.
I think she is. Jeff should be as well.
Uh-huh.
Um, But I think we should kick it off because Eve is already here. So today's
All right.
theme, and then whoever joins can just contribute to the conversation. So today's conversation is looking at the beginnings. So the beginnings of solution focus, or even before then. Then we can talk about, and we see where that leads to, and where we are at today. Are we pleased to notice anything? What does the future hold for solution focused therapy, the different types of therapy? What does that look like in this day and age? What did it look like then? So at this point now, I'm just going to be quiet because Eve knows when I start talking, I don't shush. Did you see what Eve just did there? She
Don't
went,
put words in my mouth.
So Arnold and Kate, I'm going to tell you a little story, and whoever else is watching. So Eve and Gil have been absolutely amazing mentors to Joe and I, and we're absolutely privileged that we have them in our lives. But they're also passive bullies,
Manipulative, I would say.
manipulative.
Yeah.
Inspirational.
Is that the
Oh,
word you're going to use? Inspirational.
okay.
So we've actually written a book, our first book, which would have come around had Eve and Gil not put a little bit of pressure on us. With Eve saying, I still haven't read your book. Oh, you haven't written one. And Gil saying, well, if you don't write it, someone else is going to claim it. And it's like, oh, come on. So between the two of them, this book has now been written and sent off to Routledge.
All right.
Which
And what
is
is your book about? Is it about
fantastic.
a silent session?
it has a little bit of an element of that, but it's child to parent, working with child to parent abuse, the solution focused approach. So it has a lot of detail on family therapy, domestic abuse, children with special educational needs, mental health. So it covers quite a lot, but it never would have been written had it not been for Eve and Gil. So
Yeah.
you're both amazing for that.
Here's
And
Jeff.
Oh,
But
that
you-
is so
Yeah.
exciting. Congratulations.
thank you. So
Aisha,
that's
one-
it. We've done it now.
Once everybody gets here, Aisha, I think I recommend you put the cover up again for everybody to see and to be recorded. Be good marketing for you.
Oh, but I'll put it out later on. But look, Eve, this is Jeff Chang.
I
Hi,
know
Jeff.
Steph Chang. We've known each other a
Oh,
long
you've
Hello.
known each other.
Ah.
Oh
Yes,
yeah.
'cause I know.
Well, I don't think I've ever been met or been on anything with Kate. And I've known of your work, Kate, for
Mm.
Yeah,
let's say over 30 years. And
But ignore that. It's probably 30 years that we've seen each other. Yeah, just ignore
well,
that.
you
I
came to
can't-
Calgary, I think, sometime in the 90s.
Yeah, the last time I remember seeing you at a dinner party in Colorado, but it's a long time ago.
Jeff,
Yeah.
Yeah,
great
and
to
I
see
thought I
you.
had a recollection of meeting maybe at an AAMFT conference years ago.
Oh, yeah, it might have
But
been.
I could be, I could be off base.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing how the years have passed. So
Yes.
Hi, Jeff. What time is it in Canada? Is it morning time for you?
12 noon. It's 12 noon.
Noon.
Ah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
For me, it's lunchtime.
Lunchtime.
Jeff's on his lunch break.
Yes.
Yeah,
Gonna
I
take
shoved
a
some
nap
food down
and
my gullet.
decided to come to the meeting instead.
Oh, see, you put your nap aside for us. I mean, really, it was to see me, wasn't it, Eve?
I'm sorry.
It was, you only joined to see me. You didn't want to see Kate or Jeff or Arnold or Gil.
No, certainly
John.
not.
I mean, I'm just saying. Eve and I are email buddies, checking in on each other. How are you? How's things going? Are you well? So yeah, you're brilliant.
So, Aisha, Aisha,
Yes.
please say some more about your book, and because you demonstrated some part of the session, the silent session in Toronto, right? So please say some more about it.
So the book was created because of Eve and Gil, who put pressure on us to write this book. So the book title is something like Child to Parent Abuse, a Solution-Focused Approach. And it covers how and why children can become abusive towards their parents, how children are not born to be abusers.
Yeah.
It's because of circumstances and events that have happened to them.
They are
How
not born to be abusive,
they're
right?
not born to be
Yeah.
abusive. So
Yeah.
we talk about the cycle of abuse, the intergenerational cycle of abuse, the link between child to parent abuse and adult mental health, children becoming victims and perpetrators. So how our work tries to end the intergenerational cycle. Talks about working with children and families with special educational needs or disabilities, co-parenting and why that matters. Lots and lots and lots of things on there. 12 chapters. Joe and I did not kill each other writing the book,
No. Yeah.
which
Come
kind
close.
of helps.
Yeah.
I should
Okay,
say a little bit how you and Joe first got into dealing with child to parent abuse.
Hey, Haesun. Sorry, quick hello to Haesun.
Hi,
Haesun.
Eve,
Hi,
this is
Haesun.
Haesun Moon.
I
Hi.
don't think we've ever
Finally, I
met,
get to
but
see you.
hi.
I get to meet you. Hello. Why are
Um,
you all here before the time? Am I late?
No, you're not late. Eve joined slightly earlier.
Okay.
So we thought we'd start a little bit earlier.
All right.
You're
What
1
was
minute
your
early, Haesun.
He's
Oh,
my dog. Her name is
oh.
Captain Kobe, just so you know.
right? What was your question, Gil? And then we'll move on to the title.
yes, say a little bit about how you and Joe first got into child to parent
This is
abuse.
Rumi.
Bobby!
Oh,
Love that. So Joe and I were working at a school, and I met with a parent whose child was a school refuser, so his attendance was very low. I was aware that they had only been in the country for about a year. So I met with a mum to basically say, why is your child not coming to school? He was 14 years old at the time. And I saw lots of bruises on her neck, on her shoulder. And I assumed it was a partner. Transpired it was her son. So, I mean, this was 2011. Even though Joe and I were in the safeguarding team and, handled a lot of child protection cases and everything else, it was like, where do you go with this? So we knocked on many, many, many doors, called absolutely all the organizations. They never heard of child to parent abuse. They didn't even think it existed. And then I created a safety plan with the mum and asked her to memorize it. So she called me one day and I could hear him throwing things, calling her name. So I ran to the house, called the police at the same time. The police arrived and they basically said to her, be a good parent and you stop hitting your mum. Got back in the van and left. So what do you think happened after I left?
nothing changed.
Nothing changed. So Joe and I were standing outside having a sneaky cigarette. I do not smoke Arnold or Eve. It's Joe's influence. And I said to Joe, shall we start an organization? And I will not repeat what he said because it's very rude, but basically said, no, don't be stupid.
Hey, that's Peter.
Hey,
And
Peter.
now,
Peter.
hi, Peter.
Hi,
Welcome.
everybody. Hello.
And then from there, we started the charity. So that's how it came about.
Yeah.
We had no idea what we were doing. We just made it up as we went along, like we always do. There we go.
I think it's a great story. It's a great story. And you didn't, and you weren't at that time. You and Joe were not familiar with solution focused approach.
No.
No, we were very institutionalized. It was all about you should know how to behave. You do not treat your mother this way. Sign a behavior contract, adhere to it, and if you don't, there shall be consequences.
Mm.
And how well did that work?
Well, the ones that we've seen thereafter, we have apologized to them. We are so sorry. We didn't know what we was doing. We just, trial and error, complete error. Please forgive us. But despite that, it was useful to a lot of them. But did it have longevity? No. Did it support them to make healthier decisions? No. It was more of an instant resolution.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
It's so funny.
The solutions, yeah.
For the same reason, I actually host apology class every 3-4 years, and people who came to class, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what I was doing.
Well,
I
I
said
mean,
someone
if
said-
you start apologizing to me, we'll be here for years.
That is amazing. That's how you actually got started. Wow.
Yeah, so that's how we started. So Peter de Jong is here. We love Peter de Jong,
Oh, Peter.
one of our idols. Jeff, he knows how I feel about him. Jeff. Arnold, superstar. Kate, you're absolutely amazing. I'm so glad that Eve introduced you into our lives. Joe, hi Joe.
Hi.
Gil, Gil, grandfather Gil. So today we are talking about the new beginning. No, not the new beginnings, the beginnings. Take from that what you will, whatever that title means for you. So this is just a very chilled out conversation that we're going to have. I think maybe Haesun can start off by asking whoever you want a question.
Oh wow, that's so when we were talking about this actually, and Joe found out that I would be here, and Joe was so rude. I'm not gonna repeat what he said, but he said something like, "Why is Haesun there?" So I'm here to ask questions. So there you go. Um, it's interesting because I was just thinking how when I first met Solution Focused, the things, as you say, Aisha, the things that we didn't know, things that we thought we knew. But then also, I am so interested in what changed for you. So all of you, as you were doing this, initially you thought this was a thing, and then something changed. So one example is some of the sayings that we say in Solution Focused. Now I'm challenging these things. For example, somebody asked me last week, what do you think about this saying, no, we don't leave footprints? And I'm like, I don't know if I believe that anymore. But some of those things that we actually take on along the way, how did it change for you from the beginning as you were getting deeper into your practice? What changed? Maybe some of those metaphors changed for you. I'm going to actually start with, I don't know, can I ask Eve?
To ask me,
Is it okay?
well, what changed was something very gradual because when we first got together, we met at Insu and Steve's house in the evening. And that was a special group that was not part of the school that we were teaching at. And what changed was a constant sense of excitement that there's potential here that we haven't even begun to touch. It was like, oh, yes, and that could happen, and this could happen. And it was extremely exciting.
And what was so exciting about it? Was it sort of talking about it? I mean, pretty much all of it. But what was kind of like very different about this group? Was it maybe practicing together? What was it that made it so exciting in the beginning?
Well, we were experimenting, and we were used to the traditional systemic approach. And so we sort of said, well, somebody would try something different in a conversation, in an interview, and then we would stop and say, well, that's different. Why is it different? And we would discuss it. But there were other times when we went right through a short interview and we would come out of it and be puzzled as to what had actually happened.
Mm.
It was just constant excitement, and it was very, very stimulating, as you can.
Oh, it must have
Mhm.
been
Can I
experimenting.
ask Eve, how was it different from what was already there at the time? What made you think this is something new, something worth pursuing?
Well, we normally ask questions about the past and what the problem is and so forth. And here we were experimenting with ask anything you want, ask about the future, ask about what would you like to have happen? All those things which we never asked because we asked about history, right? What's the history? Tell me about why you're here today. Tell me what you want to change.
Mm.
And this was, think of any other different way that you can deal with it.
And the emphasis on insight, wasn't it? How the importance of gaining insight into why you're having the problems you're having back in the pre-solution focused days.
Yeah, but yeah, try to understand it. And we weren't trying to understand it. We were trying to imagine a different future, an effective future. So it was very stimulating because everybody, took a shot at trying to do something different and suggest something different. And, we had all the time in the world and we had no clients. There was no money to be lost by doing what we were doing.
Mm.
So it was just fun.
Eva, I know in the early days, you guys were influenced by the MRI approach, which is problem focused in the work of John Weekland. Is that correct?
Well, problem focused, but I
Not
wouldn't
insight
say that.
oriented.
I wouldn't say we were problem focused or that we were influenced. Steve and Insu had been influenced by MRI, but I think Steve had gone a step beyond it, and he was already exploring roads that Insu and I and the others hadn't even begun to acknowledge that they existed. I think he was ahead. Of
Okay.
course, he was always ahead of us.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just wondering at one point where did that shift get made? Where did that occur?
There wasn't, the shift was so gradual because it was part of the experiment. We'd meet on a Thursday night, say, to experiment, and we would get friends to volunteer to be clients, and then we would do an interview and discuss what happened here and what's different. And it was different every time. And it was a building process. And we did not know what we were doing. We were just fooling around. No, really. We were having a very good time.
Mhm.
And Kate, were you part of any of this?
No, you know what? I came in 1985, and I think I was there probably less during the developmental phase and more, and not that this was articulated, but as I look back, this is how I'm making sense of it, more in the application and dissemination phase. So when I was there, there was, the solution-focused approach was at least the foundation was there, and the miracle question
Oh, yeah.
and exceptions and scaling questions and all this kind of the technique part of it. That was all there, and then there was really an emphasis on how do we apply this to different client populations or different problems or issues? And then it was really a lot about getting the word out. But is it okay for me to just briefly go back to your original question, Haesun, about like what changed for me? Because my first introduction to solution-focused therapy actually came from Steve DeShazer. And I don't remember the exact year, but it was in the early 80s. Yeah, it must have been an AAMFT, American Association of Marriage and Family Therapy conference. And Steve was doing a workshop along with someone, and it wasn't Sal Minuchin, but from, kind of that structural group, structural family therapy. And at that time, I was training at a different institute in family therapy. And, those of you who know Steve dearly love him, and he could be a little quirky. And so, my first introduction was to Steve and sitting back in his chair in his very relaxed manner and having this dialogue, doing this workshop. And I was much more drawn to the structural family therapy stuff. And to be honest, I kind of thought it was dumb. So, what Steve was talking about. And I later told him that. And he said, well, yeah, it probably was kind of dumb. Anyway, but what changed for me was I started working with a woman, a friend, Barbara, who Eve knows, who she and I we met working at a county mental health center. She had previously done the training at BFTC, and she and I carpooled together, and she would talk to me about her cases, about her clients, and I got to thinking, this is kind of interesting. So I was still a little skeptical, but I decided to sign on to the year-long training at BFTC and was truly blessed that I was assigned to Eve's team. And so Eve was my trainer and supervisor and became my mentor, and then now a lifelong
Worst
friend.
client I ever had. Worst.
And so what changed for me was Eve. And I say that not only because I dearly love Eve, but also because she humanized the approach. And we've all read about, Eve's work with the client therapist relationship, the therapeutic relationship, and, the emotion, acknowledging emotion in the full breadth of who the client is. And it was like, it was really eye-opening in that, oh, there's more to this than what I realized. So that's my response.
However, I may just add a little piece. Here she was, a brand new student. She had never done an interview before, certainly not a solution-focused one. And she gets in front of the mirror with a middle-aged couple, and it's her first interview. And it's like she's been doing it all her life. I sat with my mouth open and thought, oh my goodness, so much talent. It's just natural. She was just a natural.
And do you think that that's I mean, Peter, I'll ask you this question. Do you think being a good solution-focused coach, therapist, whatever title you have, is about humanizing the conversations and being able to be flexible in your approach to be client-led, as Kate would have demonstrated?
Well, Eve used the word, she was a natural. And I think we know from the broader outcome literature that there are good therapists in every approach. And attachment to what you're doing and belief in what you're doing is critical. So I think all of us are kind of building our own model, even our own solution focused model. If we're open to learning from our clients and open to what's useful. Yeah. I was from Eve's comment too about, we were just fooling around and we were having a really good time, giving. I think if we did, once an approach gets established and systematized, then there's always the danger of orthodoxy. Well, orthodoxy didn't create this approach. It was around and having a good time and being keen of what was working. And I think there's real wisdom in that.
I think you made a very good point because we were having fun and we were experimenting purposefully and deliberately trying to be different and see what could we do that hadn't been done before. And that was, I think, part of the magic of it that allowed it to happen. There wasn't a plan of any kind, it just happened. And then, oh, this works. Oh, that seemed okay.
And when I first went to BFTC, after having been trained to look for transference and relationships, it wasn't working very well. When I went in 1990, I came back so excited because I think that same ambiance, that same kind of openness to, I mean, everybody here can have a good idea. If this is your first time here with us at BFTC, or you're a long time, this is your 10th workshop or whatever. If you had, something to say, people were curious about that and with it. And that I found that very freeing and refreshing. Yeah.
And the fact that you were experimenting, that you were just having fun and experimenting. And I wonder how much of that is still happening in practitioners every day, that we are experimenting. I mean, if we were to ask people who are listening in and all of us, what are you experimenting with right now? I wonder what the answer might be. Huh. I know.
Well,
Yeah, go on.
I was going to say, I just wonder how much orthodoxy there is in solution-focused therapy. That might put a kibosh on experimenting.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Is orthodoxy in solution focused actually the model itself or the stance of experimenting? Like the
Or
listening
the stance
is,
of
listening is
not experimenting.
or not experimenting. I mean, what we're talking about here is it came about because we had this stance of listening and what do you want and doing something And really having that. So is that what makes solution focused like what it is still? Or is that, as Kate, you were saying, when it was kind of set and then now we're disseminating, in that disseminating, did we lose that part of messiness of experimenting? That's what I'm just thinking.
I think it's very dangerous when we stop experimenting. It's
Wouldn't you
extremely dangerous.
But when you carry it into a context, there's great pressure to systematize. Insu and I had a big project with child welfare in the state of Michigan, and they want to systematize it. They want to manualize it. Steve was always very skeptical of manualizing solution focus because he wanted to hang on to the free spirit experimentation. He felt looking at what you do, and at least that's what he said to me, and paying attention to what's happening moment by moment in those interactions is going to teach you to be a more effective practitioner. But when you go to the state of Michigan and they've got how many thousands of workers that have to be trained, then they want it manualized. And I think that creates some of the pressure to, at least that's what was in my mind when I talked about orthodoxy.
I'm always a bit uncomfortable when I hear people talk about being a solution-focused purist. Like I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't know what that means. Does it mean one always asks a miracle question, one always is it down to which questions or techniques you're employing, or is it because I think how many of us are on this screen? My guess, we could each see the same client and it would look very different just based on our interaction with the client, who we are as practitioners, who the client is kind of becomes in relation to us, all of those things. So
right.
Well, I have a question. It's like, does the solution focused approach always work? And then when it doesn't work, what does a solution focused therapist or coach do? What do you do next?
We become problem focused. What do you think? Easy.
I think you look at a videotape of your session and you pay attention, moment by moment, what you think's happening in there. And I had so many students tell me I asked a miracle question that didn't work. Well, I mean, a Mozart piano concerto is very different if it's played by somebody who's been studying piano for 2 years and somebody who's a concert artist. It's not the same piece of music. So, I mean, I think there are a lot of interesting ways to come at that when somebody says to you, it doesn't work.
With
It
some
hasn't worked yet.
Hasn't worked yet. Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Jeff.
some supervisees.
Talking about music, Peter, I like the statement, the therapist is an improvisational artist. So you have to improvise all the time. You cannot, that's what I say in my trainings, you cannot prepare for a conversation because you never know what is going to unfold. So you have to improvise all the time. And of course, the solution-focused model is in the back of your head, but you have to improvise to the answers of the client, and that's what keeps the conversation alive.
But
I think that's a wonderful point, based on what the client says, because often when people say, well, the miracle question doesn't work, they're very focused on the question and the technique. And I think the solution, like you're saying, the solution focus starts with, as Insu used to say, having solution focused ears, hearing these hints about what the client might want, and then, as you say, getting at it in a useful way.
But what you're all talking about is the fact that it's not something that you can learn quickly.
Mm.
It's a short way of working, but it takes time to learn.
Mm.
And
Mm.
one of the problems is when the student comes and starts, they start using the techniques right away and think they're going to work like magic, and they
Yeah.
don't. What
Mhm.
works like magic is the connection that's created and how the questions are used with every particular client. So this is one of the problems. How do you teach it to lots of students quickly? You can't, because it takes experience to really be a good, well, to be any good therapist. But this, just because this is a brief model, it's not learned briefly. And
Mhm.
all of you know
That's
that.
that's why, Eve, you focus in your book, you focus on the alliance, right? The working alliance.
Yeah.
Yes,
You don't focus on technique, but you
right.
focus on the emotions of the
Yes.
client, but very much on the working alliance, how that evolved.
The relationship.
It's the
Yeah.
human
Relationship.
relationship,
Yeah.
yes. Because that's
Yeah,
what
isn't there some
any
research happening about that?
Just a little bit, Jeff.
I mean, Jeff, what's your
Sorry.
take on this?
Sorry, what?
Jeff, what's your take on this?
Oh, were you speaking to me? Sorry.
Yeah, Jeff,
Oh,
what's your
my
take? What's
take
your
on it.
take?
Well, I have some random thoughts. I mean, I must be the most impure of the bunch because I've been, cavorting with narrative therapists for 30 years. So I'm pretty impure. I wasn't quite
I'm-
sure. I was
Say
like,
it, say it
I'm
with
pretty, I'm pretty,
pride.
I'm
Come on.
pretty, I'm pretty impure too, Jeff.
let's
Oh, hi,
compete with
Jeff.
how impure
That
we
was
can
good.
be. Compete over how impure we can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I just something I just have had random thoughts along the way, like the stuff with related to MRI and John. I read something like, I don't know, maybe from the early 90s that Stephen Inser wrote, and they were saying, we have a major disagreement with John because the premises were, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it doesn't work, do something different. And once you know what works, do more of it. And he said we have a severe disagreement because they changed the order of the assumptions 2 and 3. So, so it was kind of written tongue in cheek, and so I mean they just moved. Once you know what works, keep doing it. To number 2. So that was that was kind of fun to see that, and how much respect they had for John, as they expressed it in that book chapter. Yeah.
So
But
for those people who don't know, does anyone want to explain who this person is?
John Weekland.
Mm.
John Weekland?
Well, I think I think John and Steve were best friends. I mean, people maybe have more
John
of
Weekland,
insight into that relationship
Yeah.
than I do.
hmm
One of
Oh,
the most fun
really?
nights I ever had at a conference was getting drunk with them together. And
Eve, they got drunk together.
Mm.
They were very close friends.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And they, yeah.
What struck me listening to you guys thinking about it is, so we have like an idea in the back of our head, like you know, we don't try and fit people into a model, but
Mhm.
it's it's difficult without the practice because every client's unique, right? So whatever their common problems are, they are a unique individual, and we won't know what works for them unless we ask. And even if we microanalyze all our tapes and look at it, and think that was a really good question, but it falls flat the next time. How do we keep going knowing that actually, is it just about just go with the flow, let the client lead and then see where it goes? Because I think fitting people into a model doesn't always necessarily work and always necessarily the right thing to do. So yeah, how do we keep changing? Because every client is so different. And I remember we spoke with Peter, and Peter was saying how exceptions was a big thing for him back then, finding out that there was exceptions to a problem. But now it's we wouldn't even think an exception is something unique. If I have a back pain, some weeks it hurts more than others. That's an exception. But this was an exception to people's emotional problems. Why was that so important? Why is it important to look for those?
You know, I want to bring it back to this joke about pure and impure, by the way. It's borderline sort of, I don't know how I feel about it. Because when I think about pure, impure, it's sort of I mean, okay, hold on a second. This one is a mixed breed. It's it's a poodle mix, yeah? Now, I actually think about solution focused as even 20 years ago when I first met solution focused, it was so distinct. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so different. Now, when I see other models, I see something similar happening. They also focus on the future, the positive, and all those things. And I'm like, okay, what is? And it's almost like in my neighborhood, like I don't know my neighbors' names, but I know all their dogs' names. And out of maybe 50 dogs, like 40 of them are poodle mix. So I feel like that it became like that resilient, the best like mix that can go with many other things. And now then my question is, what is it that is specific to solution focused feature that let you know, yeah, this has a poodle in it. So for me, I think that has changed for sure because I thought, oh, it's a miracle question. But then I saw other modalities doing miracle question, the best scenario question. I'm like, huh, are you just, we call it R&D, right? Rip off and duplicate. So it's like, is that the case here? Or so I'm just thinking, what is it that is specifically solution focused in this day and age? There's
Well,
no
I
longer
would say
1980s, right?
I would say
Yeah.
that I just throw my ideas out there. The common poodle here is and is being strength based, which I think solution focus assumes clients have strengths, competencies, and resources. Narrative does, and provides tools for how to talk about that and activate those in therapy. Now, that's in contrast to the traditional deficit focused, pathology focused models that have dominated the sort of the textbook evidence-based models. I've been saying, and having been there and then been in more solution-focused, strength-based, being strength-based works, gets better results. And I've been saying for years, someday the evidence-based, CBT evidence-based people will become solution-focused, but they will still call it CBT and claim they discovered it. And I think that's what's happening. Haesun, as you're describing, you're seeing more commonalities there. I think, and
Which is
I came,
great, by the way.
huh?
Which is great, by the way. I
Well,
really hope
yeah,
that doesn't matter what you call it. If you're the solution focus, that's great.
yeah. Um, but the meta-analysis over many years have found that no one approach is more effective than any other. But I came across a meta-analysis recently, fairly large meta-analysis that looked at strength-based approaches writ large compared to treatment as usual. And it found the strength-based approaches were slightly better it was statistically significant. The effect size was small, but statistically significant. And I think that's a significant new finding.
I'm actually quite curious to know about Joe's question with exceptions. Eve, were the exception question, or Arnold, Peter, Jeff, Kate, Gil, were they from the beginnings of having fun and introducing solution-focused therapy into your world and trialing it out with clients? Were the exception questions naturally brought in, or was it born through, accidental? Did clients come up with it
Well,
first? What's the
it
story behind
wasn't
it?
accidental because when we experimented, we would try to look at each issue we were talking about from as many perspectives as possible. And that required you to say, well, does it work and when doesn't it work? And what would have to happen for it to work better? It was sort of part of the way of thinking that we began very, very early, started very, very early. And
I
Go on, Peter.
I did and I still have it on tape. I did an interview late 90s with Insu, and I explicitly asked her that question about her thoughts about where the exception question came from. And one thing she said is what Eve was saying, which is that she didn't say it quite this way, but this wasn't a linear kind of thing. It was kind of like this bubbling of creativity and trying a whole lot of different sorts of things. But she said, that said, I think that the exception question as such was born more out of the formula first session concept. This idea of paying attention to what works. And then she talked about a particular case. And she says, really, the idea of exception is built into formula first sessions question. And she says, my recollection is that creative, that team that creatively put that together really helped to crystallize this notion of an exception question, which I had never thought of before, that it came that way.
That really happened when we didn't have any clients, when we had no money and we had nothing except time. And we would sit and play around with interviewing and tape it and say, well, that looks like it might go further. And it was pure experimentation and fun.
And Eve, I know you wrote about, you told the story about it was a particular client family, and as you were preparing to, the end of session message, and at that point, kind of the standard was for the team to ask people, because you were still kind of more problem focused, ask people to come back and tell you what they wanted to change. And then, but on this particular occasion, somebody said, and I recall hearing it was you, said, why do we always ask them something to the effect of, why do we always ask them what they want to change? Why don't we ask them what they don't want to change? What they want to have, stay the same. And so the team said, okay, let's try it, in that experimental way that you described. And the family came back and they had things to say. They had things to report.
And so many things that are part of the whole quotes model now happen that way. It just somebody said, why don't we do it differently? And we did it differently because there were no rules at the time. We just, let's do this, let's do that. And then out of that came certain things that made sense to repeat continuously.
And Arnold, you worked with Insu for a little while, didn't you?
I did, yes.
And
Did I?
what was
I'm
and
sorry.
Arnoud Huibers worked with Insu Kim Berg for a little while. I think you invited him over, Insu over
Yes,
for the WOW, was it the WOW project?
that's right. That's right. Yeah. They were in Utrecht many times, Steve and Insu. And for me, it was a life-changing event to meet them. It was great because the talks they had with clients was so intense, so special. And they were very different people. You know, Steve was quite introverted.
Quirky.
Yes. And
That's
so
to put it mildly.
when I first met him in Utrecht, he didn't care much about his clothing. He was just wearing a gray coat. And when I saw him having a coffee at the bar, I thought it was a homeless man drinking his coffee there. And then Dr. Luc Isebar introduced me to him. He said, "This is Steve de Chaser." And I was shocked. Steve.
Arnold, the only time I met Steve was at a conference in San Francisco in 1986. And at first I thought he was a homeless person.
Did you?
Yeah.
I did too. So I tried to talk with him, but it was not so easy. I said, "Hello, Mr. Chaser. How long did it take you to fly from Milwaukee to Utrecht?" And he said, "Oh, I don't know."
Ask Insu. I don't know.
I don't know was a great conversation stopper.
Mm.
And Insu was
First time
very
I met
different.
Steve in 1990,
Yeah.
he was driving, I went to a workshop and I rode with him in his S-Class Mercedes from the workshop to his house for the
Yes.
pizza party. So
Yeah.
different experiences.
Yes.
And
And then he was presenting for us, like a group of 50 psychotherapists from Utrecht. And he didn't have a fancy PowerPoint at all. He was just standing there and improvising, just answering questions. And half of the group left. They found it quite boring. And I thought this man is a genius. So I came up to him in the break. I said, "This is genius." And he said, "No, no, no, not at all. We make a lot of mistakes," he said. But I thought it was genius
he
because
was a wonderful musician.
he was also, yeah. Yeah.
Arnold, what struck you or what stood out to you? Because clearly it sounds like your reaction was quite different than some of the others.
What struck me, they were very special people. And, you know, the talks they had with clients was so different, so special. And they had a different style because Insu was very communicative, very warm, and she could build trust with a client within a few minutes and have a real deep conversation with them. And Steve was different. I think he told us that he had an aunt who told him, "You only have a limited amount of words in your life, so you have to be very..." And he took that literally, so he was a minimalist. He didn't use many words, but he was a great listener. He could listen to the client and build on their answers.
You know, he was so sensitive. He acted so tough. And here we were, a very close-knit group of people. And one day he and I had a fight. And I was so angry. I got up and I walked out of the room and I slammed the door and I left the office. And when I came back, there was Steve sort of hovering in the corner of the office, and he went, Like he wanted to make up, and it seemed so unlike Steve, always
So what did
so
he do?
unemotional.
Did he try to make you laugh or what?
No, it was a sort of a very little boy sort of gesture. I didn't mean it. Don't be mad at me.
All right.
It sounds like it was a minimalist gesture.
Yes.
I mean, I'm quite interested to know about Jeff's party that he attended with Steve, where you all got drunk.
Oh, it was at that Tulsa conference in
Oh, yeah.
1991.
Right.
I heard
Yeah,
about that, read
it
about
wasn't
it.
a party. It was three guys at the bar, and I think they took a shine to me because I'm Asian, right? So
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember much. It
Oh, right.
was a good
Okay.
evening. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay. So you don't remember much. You just remember it was a good evening.
yeah. It's one of those. No, but I
And what
mean,
happens at the bar stays at the bar.
so so Steve was teaching a workshop with somebody else sponsored, and I said, "You want to have dinner?" And I took him home to my house for dinner. So I get gas, uh, and I'm driving home. He says, "Not a word." Like it's a 15-minute drive to my house. He says, "Not a word, not a word." I go, "Oh man, this is gonna be a long night." So then, my wife at the time, who's a Caucasian woman, she's okay, eat, and she's like, "I'm just wondering how you guys deal with this. It's like, what's it like for you guys to be in an interracial relationship?" And then he was just talking about this and that and experiences he had. And it was like, whoa, poop at the nickel in this guy. He was talking about Sarah, and I think she was in her young 20s at that point, and she was trying to figure out what to do with her life. And he was like, well, she thinks she might be a social worker. I don't know how that's going to work out. And then I was like, okay, so then I take him back to his hotel. And then like I see Insu maybe 6 months later at AMFT, and she goes, "Oh yeah, like Steve came back and told me he loves that evening." He says he hates talking about therapy after the workshop. He talked about something else. So it was like, okay, I mean, the life of, you know, that he, I mean, I mean, Arnold says, like, you're it's well, your ideas are genius. He's like, no, like, no, not really. We make lots of mistakes. I mean, it was just kind of um, an unassuming person, but because I think sometimes people saw him as standoffish, they maybe thought something else. They thought he was, stuck up or arrogant or something, but like not at all, right? I don't think, anyways.
No, they
Yeah,
were really modest, and I love that about
yeah.
them. They're really modest. Yeah. I remember at a conference in Amsterdam, Insu came in to someone's workshop late, and she came in very quietly and, without leaving any footprints. But everyone was impressed by Insu coming in, coming into the room. Yeah. So that was
What's
great.
fascinating to me is, thinking about, the topic of this call being around the beginnings and, hearing from Eve about those really early days, and then talking about sort of how this very iterative experimental approach ended up resulting in what we now know to be solution-focused brief therapy. And we're also kind of reflecting on the various personalities involved. And it strikes me that part of what helped this model to develop was just the unique personalities and the unique backgrounds and as a result, the unique contributions that each of the team members the founding team members were able to bring. I mean, and such different people with such different backgrounds. Eve, you with your background, being born in Vienna, in some very, very difficult times and then immigrating to the US. Insu's background in Korea and coming to the US, and Steve's background, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, on the south, growing up on the south side of Milwaukee, and then the others who were involved, Marilyn and Jim and
Dirks.
Don.
Jim Dirks.
And it strikes me that had you all been very similar, it probably wouldn't have worked.
Mhm.
But you each brought your own creativity and curiosity and all of those things that really, and an openness and a willingness to, as Peter, you were saying, everybody's ideas were welcome, you know. Boy, it's like magic, you know. I mean, to me, that's a recipe for how to, how to make
Right.
something work. The old Gestalt saying the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right?
But there was that other piece to it. Your description was perfect, but the back sort of it was all played against I want to say humor, but it was played against the background of anything goes. You can do anything here, and nobody's going to laugh at you. And I, for one, am a rather shy person, or was at one time. And it was difficult for me to get into that group and let go. And the group allowed that. Everybody became themselves. And it was okay. You didn't have any sense of, oh, that's not going to be approved of or anything like that. So the freedom to be was very big, very influential.
Well,
The
it
freedom,
was
the
that
freedom to be
anything,
authentic, right? The freedom to be authentic, to be yourself.
but was it, it's okay, anything goes, let's see how it works. But if it doesn't work, then let's don't do that again. Was that kind of the spirit?
That, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a story related to that. I was before I came to the clinical social work therapy world, I was trained as a sociologist. I have a doctorate in sociology, and the approach that made the most sense to me was symbolic interactionism, which is very, very close to what we call social constructionism. So
Yes.
training me psychodynamically was not a real good fit. And doing therapy that way wasn't a good fit, which brought me more towards solution focus. But so I got there in 1990 in the summer. I went to a workshop, and Steve and Insoo were working on this paper, a post-structural revision of therapy. And I, in this workshop, it's my first workshop. Steve Insoo would always say, Steve, talk about the history, talk about the ideas, because she always ran the workshops. And Steve would grumble a little bit and he'd stand up and then he'd say some, as Arnold would say, really brilliant things. So we got into it about deconstruction and meaning making and that sort of thing. And this is my first workshop there. And Insoo comes up and says, Peter, can you stay tomorrow? So I stayed the next day, and three of us spent all day talking about that paper and about the language in that paper, and Insoo liked very much the idea, the negotiation of meaning. And Steve was still more talking about deconstructing the meanings of clients, and that's where a lot of the focus was. And I mean, there were good points on both sides, but I had no background with them, but they were just so open and curious if they and welcoming that I never had an experience like that, so non-competitive.
Mhm.
You know, so open and respectful.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
when Joe and I were first introduced to the solution focus community, and we started hanging around with you guys and getting to know you guys through, Facebook during the pandemic and before then, and meeting up with people, it felt like home. If you feel comfortable, and when we go to the conferences, whichever conference it is, there's a lot that these conferences have in common, and that also includes just the familiarity. You may not know that person, but you already feel at home with everybody that's there. And that really does stand out. It's very, very different to other conferences that I've ever been to. I mean, it takes a little bit of getting used to when it's your first conference, because everyone's just so nice.
Yeah.
Why are they so nice? What's going on? And the conference in Canada, which Vicky Esberg and Haesun and others organized, was absolutely fantastic. And it was a continuation from EBTA. It was like part 2. And it's like going from one family member's house for a meal to another. And that's what you guys are talking about. You can just be yourself without. Well, I mean, Haesun judges me all the time, but I could be myself with everybody but Haesun. But I know Joe's taking down a lot of notes, which is what Mr. Lettieri does. So
My shopping
I'm going to
list.
go to Joe and then Haesun to ask the next questions.
I didn't really. It's not really a question. Listening to you guys, I was remembering a conversation we had with Evan George from Brief in London when Steve first came over. And there was quite a lot of people in the crowd, and they were saying, so Steve, does solution focus work with depression? And he said, no. Does solution focus work with anxiety? And he'd say, no. And eventually what the point was he was making was it doesn't work with labels, it works with people.
With people.
Yes.
Is that the sense that this is why I love it so much? I don't know about everyone. It's not really a question, it's just an observation, I guess. But
Right.
it's about working with human beings, regardless of their presenting issues.
Yeah.
And before I take it over to Haesun, I need to ask Eve, I need to ask you a question. Jason, pop your head. Jason wanted me to ask you this question. Or do you want to ask it? Go.
Hey.
I can't send the staff home. Go on, ask a question.
Hi, Eve. How are you?
Eve, this is Jason. Right, ask your question.
My question is, when you very first met Steve, the Sager, what was your very first impression when you saw him? Is everyone saying that they thought that he was homeless or whatever? I'm curious, your very first impression when you saw him or met him for the first time.
Are you talking to me or to everyone?
To you, Eve.
To you.
Jason wants to ask
when
you
I
that
first
question.
met him? Oh,
Yeah.
he and Insu had just gotten married, and he took a job at Family Service where I was a student in the family therapy department. And so Steve was new there and didn't know anybody. And he sort of followed Insu around like a little puppy, very shy and didn't speak to anybody. And in a way, that's how he was until we had the Free Family Therapy Center. He did not have a high profile at Family Service. He stayed in the background, and he probably did his writing and thinking when he was off by himself. And I would say that people would say, I don't know this guy. He's very shy, but I don't know much about him.
So would you have said that Steve was quirky when you first met him?
No, I would say he was withdrawn, not
Withdrawn.
quirky, no. just
Hmm. I like that.
withdrawn
So did
and
you go to
followed
speak?
into around wherever it's.
Okay.
Hmm.
So did you go and speak to him first, or did he come up to you?
No, he didn't speak. He didn't speak first.
He didn't speak first.
He barely answered when you spoke to him.
Eve,
Unless he was drunk, Jeff.
how long did Steve work at Family Services before he left to start working on solution focused approach?
I would say that it wasn't even a year before we opened the very first office.
Hmm.
It wasn't long at all.
Okay,
At
Haesun.
Family Services, were you doing family therapy?
No, we had no clients. We talked. We had a board with paper on it, and we'd sit around and drink coffee and talk ideas and
But Eve,
experiment.
at Family Service, you saw clients. You were doing
Oh,
family
yeah.
therapy. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Family
No,
Services.
I'm sorry. Did I say
Yeah.
family service? No,
No, Gil was asking
I
about
was just
Family
asking,
Service.
at family service, yeah.
you were doing family therapy because I know there at that time, and there were still some family service agencies, they were still doing individual child therapy, a lot of that.
Well, they did various therapies there. Yeah. And
Uh-huh.
solution focused was not a name yet,
Yeah.
but Insu introduced some ideas to the students that were
Oh.
solution focused, yes.
Uh-huh.
Can I
I,
jump in and just respond a bit to Joe's comment?
Kate,
About
no one here is going to stop you, Kate.
because Joe, you were reflecting on Steve. It sounds like doing a workshop or some training at Brief, and people asking about. And I'm thinking about my earlier comment about being my time at BFTC, which would have been from 1985 to 88. And I think I used the term, it was sort of the application and dissemination phase. And I think part of why there was interest at that point in sort of applying the approach to different kind of client groups and things was not because it was precisely to, I think, to address that issue because it was so new, and people were naturally a little skeptical about this new approach. And I think the idea, and people would often ask, well, can you use it with clients who have this issue or that issue or whatever. So part of it, was, I think, intentional to demonstrate to people. I think the mutual understanding among the team was this is an approach that is widely applicable, but we need to be able to demonstrate to people that yes, it can be, so Insu was very interested in working with people with alcohol and other drug abuse issues. Eve became very interested in the issue of domestic violence. People were applying it in, Alex Molnar and Barbara Lindquist did some early work in bringing it into classrooms. Ron Kral did work around other school personnel and all of those things. And it was in a way to be able to demonstrate that, yes, this has broad applicability, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
While still with the the overriding understanding that, yes, we're working with people, we're not working with problems.
That reminds me of something that was so humorous. We had classes of students who usually for a 2-year period, sometimes for a 1-year period. And one of our 1-year period person was a teacher, and she just couldn't break the habits of being a teacher. a teacher and asking questions like a teacher. And no matter what anybody who was supervising her did, this she just couldn't stop being a teacher, and she finally quit. But we were all so relieved because whenever she saw clients, she just became a teacher.
Yeah.
We couldn't break her of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's the thing, when you are institutionalized, so, you know, I mean, Joe and I coming from an education background, I also do think it's a character influence, your natural character, because even though we were pretty institutionalized, we were quite hopeful in the way that we worked as much as we could be, because you still had to follow, you know, all the tick boxes and everything else that you need to do when you're in that system. But Joe and I were, I think Joe a little bit more than me, if I, you know, to admit, I'm going to admit that is, but we were always really hopeful. So I think it also needs to be in your character to be able to be, to form relationships with your clients, not be in the teacher mode, not be the person that wants to save people, but more about empowering people to empower themselves. And that's something that I think character also plays a big part in, as opposed to you can't just teach it, you can't just learn it if you don't believe in it yourself.
I think there are some people that it's just in their DNA to be the expert. They just can't help themselves. And so they just don't take to a solution-focused approach.
Yeah, I mean, we're the experts in asking the right questions and
Right.
knowing when to ask the questions and knowing how to ask the questions and, you know, all of the
Yes.
above. So we have to have that expertise, but when we are with clients, we're not sitting there as, you know, I'm the clinician. You are here because you have a problem. It's more
And here's what
co-creating. It's
and
co-creating what they
you-
want to work towards with us, just nudging them with the right questions. And for me, using the solution focused approach isn't about asking every single solution focused question the way that we are taught it. It might be that I don't even ask the best hopes question in the first or second session. I hardly ask the miracle question. I ask when you're at your best question. There are so many different ways
right. It's a way of
of
thinking. It's a mindset.
yeah, but if we don't experiment, going back to the experiment, if we don't experiment, then we don't evolve. And if Eve and the team didn't spend that time having a good laugh, getting to know each other, so the problem-free conversations that then created more expert conversations and making those mistakes, learning from mistakes and playing around with the words that's in front of them and how can I ask this slightly differently to get a different result, we wouldn't be able to use it today. So it's all accidental that have been all these little accidents that's been noticed. So we do need to keep experimenting. We do need to get things wrong.
Hmm?
We have to get them wrong in order to find the right version of that.
Well, but that's the point here, that solution focus doesn't have a set of questions that it is erroneously thought to have a set of questions that one must follow in order to be solution focused, but it really doesn't. It requires you to be quite creative in how to use those questions.
I
Jeff,
love that, Eve.
I have quite a couple questions for Jeff. Jeff, you
Okay.
made to that conference in Tulsa,
Yeah.
and that was quite a few years ago. And wasn't that including solution focus and narrative people?
Yeah. Yeah. Michael White and David Epstein were there, and some Ericksonian people, Stephen Gilligan,
Uh-huh.
Bill Hanlon, whatever, however you characterize him. um, uh,
And
yeah,
that,
lots of
and there
narrative
was there
folks
was an
there.
edited book that came out of that, if I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe I have a copy of it. So I'm just curious to just find out how you see how things have evolved since then.
Um, there was this period of time in the 90s where there was lots of cross-germination, and that Tulsa conference in 91, and then the other therapeutic conversations, the title of the title conferences, the first four were pretty, had lots of representation from lots of different approaches. And then it sort of got taken over, and it became pretty much strictly, the last 15 of them or so have been strictly narrative conferences. But there was a sort of, it was a bit of a movement, and Michael Hoyt with those constructive therapies books was looking at commonalities and what people were doing, and I think that's just not happening really anymore. And yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot. Yeah, that's not happening anymore. I think it's kind of unfortunate. And when I was playing with those ideas at first, and the idea of were there some similar, like what were the similarities and differences between narrative and solution focused? We were like frontline therapists working in a youth treatment organization and self-teaching and trying stuff. And we had, a generous employer who let us, as paid staff people, sit behind the mirror for each other. And, it was pretty lovely. And we just had a chance to just fiddle around with stuff. Um, and, Michael White came from Australia. It was just the second place he came in North America was Calgary, and we got him for a day. So I mean, I think at like the grassroots, there's lots of cross germination, and that stuff. There was a significant stream of like Michael Hoyt's edited books were pretty important, but that's just really not happening anymore.
Can I just jump in and say that I arranged and was present for the very first meeting between Michael White and Steve DeShazer?
And
Where was that?
At BFTC. Nobody else was there. Insu was out of town.
Where was Arnold?
And
When
Why
was that?
didn't Arnold get an invite to this conference, and why wasn't Jeff there with a drink?
yeah, Michael and Cheryl White were staying with me. And because I had met them the year before in Australia, in Adelaide, and I had visited Dulwich and spent time with them. So it must have been 1988, I want to say.
I did not know that, because there was this joint conference they had in I think it was like 96 or something.
96?
Yeah, they had a joint event at in Milwaukee.
Okay.
At some rented like conference room in auditorium in Milwaukee. And they had presented a couple of years before that at one of those therapeutic conversations conferences, the one in Virginia, Washington, D.C. area, and they had a thing. But I didn't know about this.
Yeah, I think Michael and Cheryl
Wow.
they came to Milwaukee, and I think it was prior to an AAMFT conference. And I had already left BFTC at the time. And Eve, I'm trying to remember if you were still there or if you had already started ICF.
It was, because we traveled to Chicago together on the train and stayed at the same hotel there.
Yeah. So,
Aksha, can I ask Eve a question?
Please.
Yeah. Eve, I have a question for you, because I'm teaching this stuff a lot. I'm going to India next week to teach the solution-focused approach. So what do you think I miss when I purely teach the technique?
What do I think?
What do you think we lose when we only teach the techniques?
I don't know I don't know how one can only teach the techniques. I can't imagine how to do that because every question is based on the answer that one had received before, and to teach techniques would mechanize the process in a way that would no longer be solution-focused therapy.
So how do you teach it then effectively? Asking for a friend.
Well, this was a big problem when we educators at the BFTC, how do we start teaching the model? You have to start with some of the questions. These are some of the questions you'll be asking. And how do you do that so that it doesn't sound terribly mechanical to the clients who come in, and some person is just shooting these questions that have no connection. It was very difficult to start somebody out in an effective way, except for Kate Kowalski, who had a
But in addition to teaching some of the questions, hi Elliot, it was also simultaneous with that. What I was always so impressed with, and I picked up on then when I was teaching, was starting with the assumptions and relating the questions to the assumptions. So if you start with the assumptions, you know, that every individual is unique and clients have within them the resources, strengths, you know, capacity to make changes in their lives. Change is always constant. All of, you know, the assumptions. Then if you can relate the questions to the assumptions, it helps trainees understand them. Like, oh, okay, now I get why I'm asking
Right.
a miracle question or an exceptions type question or something like that. And Eve, you were masterful at that. I mean, truly masterful at that. And that's what helped, you know, trainees really get it, like understand it. So
I used to help Steve set up for all those summers I was at BFTC through the 90s into the 2000s, and they had the pizza party. And so, you know, Insu was always answering emails, and Steve and I were setting up chairs and getting the world's best pizza and all that sort, and the beer and so forth. And I got to ask him all my questions. And one question I asked him, I said, Steve, this was in the late 90s. I said, when you do a session and you're with your client or clients, I said, what is it that you first of all do? What do you try to do most intentionally? And he said, a man of many words, Steve said, absorb. Absorb. So then there's a big pause, and we set up some more chairs, and then I come back to it, and I said, absorb what? And he looked at me like I you know, he just looked at me and said, well, what the client is saying, of course. And that was the end of the conversation. But it's interesting because it starts with what the client is saying, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Eve saying, yeah, you have to somehow connect in a meaningful way to that, to be solution focused. So that's a nice, I thought that was a nice starting point.
Very nice.
I love that.
Yeah,
Absorb.
wonderful. Yes.
And that's so current, isn't it? Still absorb.
Oh yeah.
Haesun, I know you have to go in a few minutes and we're starting to wrap this up, but go for it.
You know, I was just thinking, Arnoud, I'm just thinking about your comment about how Steve was probably influenced by somebody saying you have a number of words that you can speak in a life. And I'm thinking,
His aunt told him.
oh, his aunt. And then I'm thinking, what if you didn't use up all the words? I mean, do you talk a lot and faster, closer to, like anyway, I was just thinking about that. And I am so touched and actually really, really grateful that because people like me I've never met Insu or Steve, and I guess I consider myself like the second generation of the modality. And I think I was so fortunate to meet my first teachers were Peter DeYoung and Peter Zabo, both of them who are experimenters. And I think this idea of experimenting, and when we talk about expertise, those two words have the same root word of taking a risk, failing the most. So expert being the person who does the most experiments and probably failed at so many things. And then I love how Eve, you're talking about this whole process as we're just fooling around, making experiments. And I really wonder who right now are gathering together with Kate, as you're saying, such diverse backgrounds, and we are gathering and doing experiments. Because I remember one of the first stories that Peter Zabo told me is that he was so uncomfortable with miracle question, but he wanted to do it. So then he rolled dice, two dice, dices. Anyway, two of them together, and then whatever number he gets, he will actually set the timer. And if it's seven, exactly at the seventh minute in the session, he will just practice using miracle question. I think it's hilarious.
That's
And
great.
it was like that. It was just to keep experimenting. And Eve, I love how you're speaking about somehow how did it become like solution focused question? Because the whole idea is it's based on what you hear. So then why do we have this thing called the solution focused question? And I just love being part of this conversation. And I just really, people who are listening to this, I really want to, as a second generation of this modality, like really be encouraged and encourage each other to just experiment. And what new things will we learn by experimenting and learning together? And I would love to see now what this becomes. So and it's and Aisha, you say accidental, but I don't think it's an accident. It emerges in every interaction. And I think that is something that we need to pay attention to. So I don't have a question, but I just have so much gratitude because Eve, the first time I picked up your book was 2009. And ever since I wanted to meet you. And I was in Australia when they were honoring you and they were talking about you. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to meet. And I get to be here with all of you. This is such a treat. So thank you for inviting me.
Well,
This is so
thank you.
awesome.
And thank you for being here, Haesun. So when you need to shoot off, just shoot off. But if I can go round to all of you just for your last words or a little story that you want to tell, anything related to the beginnings and beyond. So cute. Stop doing that because I just want to come over and go with the dog. So I'm going to start with you, Arnold.
Okay, we had this newsletter, solution focused newsletter, and we were collecting recipes from people. So I asked Insu, can you send your favorite recipe to us? And Insu said, I never cook. I'm never in the kitchen. It's too hot in the kitchen. Don't you know, Steve does all the cooking. So that's how we called our little rubric in our newsletter. Steve does all the cooking. And we asked Steve for a recipe, and we got this wonderful Moroccan fish with tomato sauce recipe. So that was in our newsletter.
Do you still have the recipe?
Yes, I do. Do you want it? Would you like to have it? Yes.
I think on the next solution focus day we should all cook this recipe, take
We
photos,
should
and
exchange the recipes. That's a wonderful idea.
yeah, and our
Be
own
creative with
versions
it.
of that.
Experiment with it.
Experiment with that recipe.
I enjoyed this conversation very much. Just keep experimenting, just keep being playful, just keep being creative. Thank you. It was very
No,
honored to be part of this group.
you're wonderful. Mr. De Jong, who's a lot taller than I thought you would ever be when I met you in Canada. And I took a photo, Peter and I, so I could share it with Joe to say, ha ha, I'm with Peter, someone you've always wanted to meet. Anything you want to share with us before we draw it to a close?
Well, I think I shared a few stories, and nothing additional comes to mind except to echo Arnold and Haesun that it's been wonderful to be a part of this group, and I think that theme that Eve started us out with, the importance of the experimenting and and having fun at it, and this notion of being ourselves. I think when we're in a context where we can be ourselves, then we can be our best. We can be our most creative, um, and if you're with others, you have the amplification that comes with interaction. I think these are wonderful themes to sound. So thank you all.
No, well, thank you. And it's always a pleasure to see you again. Mr. Chang, who I was very disappointed that you chose to go on holiday with your family rather than meet us in Canada. But, you know.
Maui
Thank
beckoned
you.
me. I couldn't help myself.
Mhm.
The I've been really fortunate. Well, so also thank you for inviting me to this. It's been such a lovely experience. I've been really fortunate in my working life to be able to be places where there was a culture of experimentation and transparency. And one thing that sort of I wonder about, and sometimes I wonder negatively about it, is that we're all like the culture of therapy in North America seems to be very siloed, and there's a culture of certification, not a culture of experimentation. And people are collecting certifications, and maybe newer therapists think they have to do that. And if you're a newer therapist, I would invite you to relax and hang out with people that you can share with and experiment, and you might have different ideas, and you can talk about it, and fight a little bit about it, and enable each other's work. But experimentation is better than certification, let's say.
I like that.
Yeah.
Nice, nice.
Joe, did you write that down? Jeff Chang quote. Did you write it down? Claim it. I shut a deal on the 28th of the 1st.
I should put your name right next to it. Don't worry.
And now I have to go be with a group of people who are trying to get certified in a particular kind of assessment. So
Great.
I shall use myself.
Great. Yes, great to
Good
see
to
you,
see
Jeff.
you,
Thank
Jeff.
you, Jeff.
Nice
Thank
meeting
Bye.
you, Jay.
Thanks so
Thanks for
much.
inviting me.
Take care of yourself. Kate.
I have to go too.
Right, let's go to you first, Eve. Eve, is there anything you'd like to say before you go?
It's been a great pleasure to be with all of you and to share your thoughts and to share some of mine. It's always a great pleasure being with people from so long ago, that a time that was so very important to me. Special time of my life. So thank you all for being here and sharing with me.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
Eve.
you.
Good
Thank
to
Take
you.
care of
see you.
yourself, Eve.
Bye.
Bye.
See
Bye-bye.
you soon. Kate. Lovely Kate. Eve's
Yeah,
favorite student.
this has been such a treat to get to be with all of you. So thank you so much for including me, for inviting me. I think what stands out for me is that, I was with BFTC for those and I'm so grateful to have had that experience early on in my career. And then I went to Australia and worked with Michael Durant for a couple of years and then came back. And then actually I was away from the solution focused field for about 30 years, other than, my contact with Eve. What has really blown me away in the last 5 years since I sort of evolved back into it, and is just how much the field has exploded. and just, you know, all the different contexts in which solution-focused ideas are being used and experimented with, and, you know, in organizations and in coaching, and just, you know, across such a, you know, I read Mark McCurgow's newsletter this morning. He's talking about, you know, applying it in communities, and thinking, using solution-focused ideas and thinking about world affairs and all of those things. And I sometimes awe at, you know, here we were talking about the very, very humble beginnings of BFTC. And Peter, I don't know if when you were in Milwaukee in the 90s, were they still in the building on Capitol Drive?
Well, they were at first, but then they moved further out,
Okay,
and then that office flooded, and
okay,
then Stephen Insu moved into a larger home, and they put the office and shop
okay.
downstairs at the very end of the 90s, because by that time they were doing less and less
They were doing more
in Milwaukee,
traveling.
but they
Yeah.
were just traveling. Yeah.
Yeah, but so, you know, these humble beginnings to now this being such a global way of thinking and practicing and things, it sort of is mind-blowing to me at times. And I sometimes wonder what I know that, you know, Eve, in talking to Eve, that she's pretty amazed by it. And I sometimes wonder what Insu and Steve would think about it, you know, now 20 years since Steve's passing and almost 20 since Insu's.
Yeah.
So that's what really stands out to me. And I am so excited for you, Aisha and Joe, in terms of the really tremendously creative work that the two of you are doing, and excited for you to have this book out and all the teaching that you're doing. And I mean, you guys are the, you know, the future of
You're the
this
future.
approach. And it's just, you know, it strikes me, you know, we're at a point now where we're talking about the different generations
Yeah.
of solution focused work. And, you know, again, I go back to those early days and think, I can't imagine anybody would have been thinking generationally at that point in time. So it's very cool.
Thank you,
So
Kate.
thank you for having me be part of this.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much. Mr. Green.
Well, I'd like to pick up on what Kate was saying. And I think sort of the theme of our conversation today has really been about creativity and experimentation. And that's sort of how solution focused therapy started and continues. And I think an example of how it's continuing is the work that you and Joe have been doing, Aisha, and publishing, starting with your first publication, The Silent Session, and now your book. And I think that's really experimentation, creativity is sort of what solution focused approach has been about throughout. And I'll continue to be sort of a nag and encourage everyone who watches this and listens to this to write up what you're doing. There's so much creative application of the solution focused approach, not just clinically, but in organizations and communities, internationally, hopefully, and share that. Write it, sit down and write and get it out there. But also, just if you don't write it, somebody else will.
I was going to quote you on that.
And claim ownership of the ideas. So,
Gil's famous words. That's good. Write it. That's good. Write it.
Yes.
That's good. Right. I can't be bothered to write, Gil. I don't like writing, Gil. Well, then someone else will. And then he'd just go on and on. And it's like fine, I'm going to write it. Fine, Joe, let's write.
just and hopefully you'll keep on because you continue to use it in creative ways So I hope that you will continue to write, and I think that that it will help continue to move the conversation in the visibility of the solution focused approach, the visibility and the credibility internationally.
Yeah. Thank you, Gil. And last but not least, Mr. Lettieri.
Yeah, well, it's been amazing pleasure to meet everyone, to hear the stories, how Solution Focus began. I was a van driver 30 years ago, never been to university, never had a really good education. But I think there's something about this approach that just felt right. And that was that human to human connection. It wasn't about being clever with questions. It was just having that bond with someone else. And that's why I fell in love with this approach, because it gave me the back seat. I didn't have to know all the answers. It's not my place to know it. So, and for anyone who's got an ego, maybe this isn't the right kind of intervention. But for me, I love it. And I love meeting you guys every time. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
And that's it. We've had a beautiful time together, learnt loads. I'm just going to end the recording. So if you guys just stay there.
Aisha, show the cover of your book one more time before we get off.
Oh, to do that, I've got to go into. No one wants to see the book cover.
Oh, yes, we do.
Okay, I've got to join Zoom from this laptop. Give me a sec. Give me a sec. You guys can. Peters, tell some stories while I find this. Come on, you're full of beautiful stories.
I told all my stories.
Oh, come
Oh, I do have one.
Ah,
When you and I looked at your article, it's wonderful. And now I have to see your book. And one thing you can be sure of, I remember a fellow who came up to me with a copy of Interviewing for Solutions in his hand, and he said, "I have made a very good living teaching this for the last 10 years." And something in, well, I said, "Well, I hope you've, given credit for your sources." And he just kind of smiled and walked away. And it reminded me once where there was some work that Insu and I had written up on mandated clients that showed up somewhere else with no reference to it. And I asked, Steve was there, and we were talking about that, and he just said, "Peter," he said, "you really should take it as a compliment, because if people are stealing things from you, if they're, taking your intellectual content without giving credit, it means they thought it was good." And he said, "Just you let it go." He said it happens all the time. So probably your stuff will get stolen somewhere along the line.
Oh, it will, yeah.
okay. Here we go.
Let's see. There it is.
Oh, I love it.
Understanding Child.
Love it.
Very nice. Who did the cover? Is it?
Joe,
Is there an echo? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was something that Routledge sent us to look through different kind of photos, and whatever we sent them back wasn't working. But Aisha found this one. Everyone in the office said, "Yeah, that's the one."
That's the one.
So we had to get
Nice.
a designer to remove some of the ladders and put the cloud in, and that's
Yeah,
it. That's how it came about.
Perfect.
cloud to sunshine.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Very nice.
Arnoud, are you and Ben Furman going to do your conference again?
Yes, we have planned a conference next year, 27 in Amsterdam.
In
Same spot,
Amsterdam.
same spots.
Same spot.
Very
Yeah.
nice spot it was.
That's in
That was a
April.
lovely
In
April
spot.
next
April.
A
year.
lovely spot, Arnold.
Please
We
come to see us.
we are very
We
happy
present.
with that spot, Arnold.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm glad. Good. I hope to
We love
Sounds
it.
like there are some stories around that spot.
We are not going to, well, we can only tell you part of the story, but that's the first time we actually spoke about the silent session was in
That's right.
Amsterdam.
That's right. You did.
And
Thanks.
we weren't going to, but Joe and I, it was very, very late at night, early morning, made some sudden, why don't we, changes. And I have this thing about planning not to plan. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I'll find out when I get there.
Sure. Sure.
Wow.
Just improvise like
Imp-
Steve DeShazer.
Yeah.
Just
in the spirit of
stand-
just Steve DeShazer.
Which annoys a lot of my colleagues because when I say, right, we're going to go to this school, we're going to do this, or we're going to deliver this training, or we're going to do that. Okay, so what are we
You
talking
know-
about? What are we doing? And my answer is always the same. I don't know. I
You
can't
know
tell you
what?
what I'm going
You
to
know
do.
what Ludwig Wittgenstein said? He said it's a sin to prepare for your lecture.
I
Never
agree.
prepare for your lecture. Just stand there and lecture.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
look at the
Just
crowd.
speak from your
Look,
heart.
yeah, look at them, embrace where you are, and then just go for it. And then you just got to observe. And yeah, it's all about improvisation. So I really do annoy a lot of the staff here when I don't tell them what I'm going to do. But even if I did tell them what's going to happen, I wouldn't follow it anyway.
Well, you're a brave woman.
Mhm.
So
I
Peter,
apologize. I need to
Yes,
jump
Peter,
off.
I'm
please
gonna
come
stop
to
the
Amsterdam
recording.
next year.
Yes, hopefully, we can all go.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be
That would be
wonderful.
fun.